and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
Q Time is our classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
I'm returning to Clinton Paris, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being heard.
True Black Essentials is a retail opportunity to bring Black businesses under one roof, where every product on every shelf in every aisle will be Black owned and Black produced by people.
YT Productions.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it. I love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay, tune into the HBCU Sports Lab.
And Charles Bishop. Just call us the sports professors, and you'll get to know us a little more as we continue to bring it down. And we're on episode 101. Can you believe it? Boy, I tell you, 101 years old in terms of the episode, partnering with Roy, our producer, Roy Evans, BCSN. But I just wanted to jump out here real quick before I go to y'all for the news of the day, before I even get into the welcome. You know, I just like to show out a little bit, and I'm dedicating this coach, the head men's basketball coach at Prairie View A&M University, Coach Byron Smith, 29 straight wins at home. So I thought I would go here and do a little love, show out a little bit for the people out there. So every once in a while throughout the show, you may see me. And if you're looking closely, let me get in there. That's logoed in there. That's the logo. That's inside. You know,
that's dope. I like it.
You know, I like that. Got my name.
Got to coordinate. Got to coordinate.
For the home team and just represent. You know, usually I stay pretty neutral. I hope the folks believe. And I'll let y'all have all the fun about picking sides and cheering on your school. But after 29, I was like, hold on now. Sometimes
that's impressive.
You gotta let it go. That's such impressive, one of the longest in the country. So I was like, let me do what I do. With that, welcome to episode 101 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports, for the institutions large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the sports story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KSWH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. As today is the first day of Texas Southern University in terms of class beginning spring semester. It starts officially today. Let's get it on.
Yeah.
Real again. Sport cards, the professor in, so class really is in session.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm going to go straight to you, Professor Bishop. Since you're back in class, with you as you start to get ready to do your own lectures before it gets too long. But let's get in here as you're getting it done in the class and things. So tell us about some HBCU sports of the day.
Well, this is breaking news within the hour, and this comes to us from Mo Carter from WZDX. He covers, of course, Alabama A&M up there in the Huntsville area, but the Alabama A&M women's basketball game versus Southern and Alcorn, they've both been postponed because of COVID concerns, and the men's basketball game has been adjusted. So we'll get further information in regards to when those games will be played. Both games being doubleheaders. They were scheduled. The Bulldogs now play at 2 p.m. against Southern on Saturday, January 23rd. And at 6 p.m. versus Alcorn on Monday, January 25th. So, this is what we have going on this semester in terms of COVID protocols. We're going to see, this continue, unfortunately, but it is what it is in terms of playing basketball within the semester. So.
Yeah, you look down the win-loss.
Shout out to old Carter.
So
got going on there. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry. You just look down the win-loss column, CB, and it's win, loss, postpone, win, loss, postpone.
Exactly.
So it's just the nature of the beat.
You throwing.
And you know what? It's hard to get a read on teams.
Yes.
Thus far because of the postponement. So we're doing our best to track the stats and track what everybody's doing, but with these postponements, it makes it tough to really kind of track all these teams. Although I think eventually you'll see the cream kind of rise and kind of separate themselves from the pack. But thus far, it's been a tough go early going in the SWAC play and MEAC play.
No doubt, CB.
It always does when you talk about that cream rising to the top in terms of how you break down. And I'm gonna get you in there, Mike. Did you want to comment on the COVID-19 before we bring in some news of the day from your perspective, or did you want to?
No, I was just commenting on him. It's tough to get a read. He's right. CB, you hit the nail on the head. You look at the statistics. Well, they haven't played this team, they haven't played that team, so we really don't have an idea for how they would fare in this matchup. So it's tough to get a read for who. But I agree. The chaff will be separated from the wheat at the end, and you'll know. I think cream will rise at the end.
Always happens. Always happens. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that. Before we move on, and I take it back to you, Mike, to give some other news of the day. I think your point is there, but look for us to sneak out a podcast, even in addition to the second show that we're looking at. Well, we may find a way to take you deep into the numbers, where we talk about sports analytics. Let us know if that's something that you would be interested in seeing us do from the professors. As I lead it off, the sports professors may be interested in breaking down a game or two just purely from an analytical perspective of the game. So if we can get in there, maybe that will help in terms of how you all are able to see the teams instead of being able to just to look at the records, because this year it's going to be so open in terms of the records, because you'll have some teams playing 4 games, others playing 2, some just playing 1,
right.
And it'll be all over the place in terms of conference. You're really going to have to get in the win percentage, but we'll give you a chance where we'll start looking at certain matchups, which teams are playing well based on some type of statistical analysis. It still won't be everything, but it'll give you a chance maybe to take a deeper dive. So if that's something that you're interested in and you'd like to see us do, let us know. Put it on the site here and talk to us as we go through it and let us know about that. Before I go to you, Mike, to give us some updates, let me give a shout out to some of those that have jumped on and followed us and started to make these comments. Wendy Jenkins Bishop, Chuck Hunt, always in the house. Willie Alex Hine, showing us much love in so many different ways. I see people commenting. I love it. Kate Johnson is always in the house talking to the other lab members out there. Y'all gonna have to find out a good nickname for the lab. Those that follow us continuously, y'all come up with a name that you all think is appropriate out there that you would like to call yourselves. Let me know what that will be, and we'll talk about it. And we'll settle on the name. Reggie Howe, good afternoon, gentlemen. CIAA in the house, as always. Episode 101, I love it. Frank Nelson, that's right. Congratulations, Doc, on your 101 show. Yes, we're going to keep bringing it on, David. Roosevelt Huggins in the house says yes. Stand loud and clear, you all. Appreciate it. Gee, it's in the house. With the power fist. I like watch while I'm on the road. So he is moving around and still catching us. I appreciate that, AD. That's talking about commitment. That's what I like to hear. Lonnie Shaw, A&T, the Aggies always in the house. Tommy Gaucher giving us some love there. Willie Lewis, Jarvis Austin, Rusty, John Jenkins giving us some love in there. A lot of folks are chiming in. Christopher Darrell, Michael D. Jones is on the house.
Mike Jones.
Chris Tucker, yes, Mike Jones. So with that, you all think about some names that we call the folks following us in the lab. Let's know what you think. LaShawn Harris is just joined us with that. Let's go to Mike. Mike, what are some other HBCU news that folks may want to hear about that they hadn't heard? And if they did, break it down like only you can.
All right. Well, first, Miss Kay Johnson calling me out, talking to be sure to check out the Sonic Boom of the South tonight. Who is that? Who is that, Kay? Is there something special about the Sonic Boom of the South that I should know about? Please educate.
Talk to him, Kay.
I know the Marching Storm, of course, there's a human G-Box. I'm sorry. Is there something about the Sonic Boom I should know?
Man, you better understand.
I know. No, let me get my point out before Doc closed my mic off. So
I think you're doing it to yourself. I try to say all that.
First of all, let me give a shout out to the Lady Panthers, Prairie View A&M Panther bowling, which has dominated this weekend. They started out the weekend in second or third, and let me backtrack. They went into Saturday's contest, and with a dominant 5-0 effort by the Prairie View A&M bowling team, left the defending SWAC champions atop the standings following day 2, and that continued on to day 3. They ended that day 2, 8-2, with an 8-2 record in league play and a total of 8,911 points. Folks, let me tell you, if you don't know anything about bowling, that's a lot of points. Kudos to Coach Glenn Wright. He's very proud of this team. He's got upcoming freshmen, but he's got a return SWAC Player of the Year in Crystal Klein that is doing things. The other thing you should know is that they are the defending champions. So they claimed first place finish in the first of 2 roundup events scheduled to be held this season. So kudos to them. So also I have to recognize individually Alabama State's Savannah Razor. And also, of course, I mentioned Prairie View A&M's Crystal Klein, who finished first. They finished first and second respectively. So Razor, who is from Alabama State, was atop the ranked freshman coming into the event. If you watched the event or kept tabs on the event, you know that she was performing well. You expected Klein to perform really well. So the SWAC East Roundup is scheduled for the first weekend in February in D'Iberville, Mississippi. So I know we were talking about basketball, but kudos to the Lady Panther. That's Prairie View, the Prairie View A&M University Bowling, as it claims its first place finish at the SWAC West Roundup.
That's pretty cool.
Did you say something about the school on the hill over there?
Yeah, that's right. The hill.
5-0 on Sunday after.
That's getting it done.
Yeah, that's getting it done.
Yeah.
Woo, that's nice. Shout out to the bowling coach and the bowling players getting it done. The White Moore says, I guess they're not going to be outdone by the Sonic Boom. The Southern University Human Jukebox Marching Band in the Biden presidential inaugural. Quote, "We Are One" event that will stream live tonight from 7 until 8:30 Central Standard Time. BidenInaugural.org/watch, and also on Urban One, HBCU Grad Now, This, and Revolt TV. Boy, I tell you, they getting it in, folks, making sure everybody knows about that.
Right.
I'm not mad. Timothy Gordon jumped in here and showing us some love. So just wanted to make sure we give some shout out. Raquel Brown, that's the dean of the School of Communication over there at Texas Southern University. Checking us out. George Walker, Walter Turner. So just giving some shout out for those that follow this sentence of love. We sure appreciate it. With that, go back to you, Charles. What else news do you have for us today?
Sure thing. Let's take a look at the SWAC Women's Basketball Weekly Honors. Southwestern Athletic Conference is named Jackson State's Amisha Williams, SWAC Women's Basketball Player of the Week, and Alcorn State's Curtis Clark is SWAC Women's Basketball Impact Player of the Week for their outstanding performances during the week of January 16th through the 18th. Amisha Williams from Gulfport, Mississippi, recorded 23 points, 16 rebounds, and 3 block shots during the Lady Tigers' 68-44 road win over Texas Southern on Monday. For the week, she averaged 15.5 points a game to go along with 10 rebounds and 2 blocks. Curtis Clark from Natchez, Mississippi, put together a pair of strong performances during the 2 wins for the Lady Braves. In the process, Alcorn State, check this out, the Lady Braves, they improved to 4-1 in SWAC play, its best start to a conference season since 2006-2007. Curtis Clark, she tallied 28 points on 11 of 24 shooting from the field, 4 of 11 from three-point range, and 2 of 2 at the line. To close the week against UAPB, she went for 12 points on 5 of 14 shooting from the field, 2 of 5 from three-point range, and came away with 7 steals while also contributing 6 rebounds. So big shout-outs to those ladies, Amisha Williams and Curtis Clark, for SWAC Women's Player of the Week. Real quickly, we'll take a look at the men's side. Alcorn State's Tremaine Crosby and Gramblin's Cameron Christian, they were named both Player of the Week and SWAC basketball, SWAC men's basketball impact player of the week. So definitely want to shout out those guys for kudos for this past week for them.
Man, is Amisha always going to be a player of the week? She's gotten that title, 3-4 times this year?
I tell you what, she is almost like Shaq. She's dominant in paint. Yeah, she's had a great start to the year in terms of what she's been able to do, because you will always see her be a stat stuffer, be it points, rebounds, and the third entity is block shots. You'll always see her in block shots.
Man, getting it done in so many different ways. Staying in there, what they call a stat stuffer.
Stat stuffer.
Staying in there. Those players of the week, you just keep stacking it, stuffing it. It's going to happen. With that, I'm going to go back to you, Mike. But before I do that, we're coming up on our interview, and we will have on today's show discussing the latest HBCU sports. We will talk to the Pigskin Showdown, Chris Williams and Brian Grove, right after you bring us some new updates. But before you do that, I wanted to shout out to Brian Fulford in terms of a co-editing article we're doing that's going to talk and tie a little bit of HBCU football head coaching history tied over to what you saw a couple of weeks ago with Alabama getting it done in their football program, but looking from a different lens. So look for that article to hit BCSN, the website, within a week. And so you can get some information there. I think some of the names as we go down memory lane is really going to surprise some people. And they're going to be a nice history lesson for those that like looking at the history framework. So go ahead, Mike, give us some update news, and then we'll bring in our guests.
So it looks like, and this is kind of moving over to kind of the MEAC, or at least the last chance. I noticed this. I saw this on social media. I saw it on, I also have to give HBCU Game Day credit for breaking this as well. Is a little bit more than detailed than Michael Jordan's I'm back, but the return of Jermaine was evidently significant to North Carolina A&T.
Jermaine Martin, yeah.
Yes, he has decided to come back. As you know, they get an extra year of eligibility because of COVID-19. Jermaine Martin was the HBCU Game Day Protect Your Skull Player of the Year, FCS, in 2019. He has announced that he will return to come back to A&T. He came here 3 years ago, and I think he wants to finish it. I think there's a little bit of attitude with him as well, with all the changes. Martin ran like a man possessed in 2019. He had 1,246 yards, 20 touchdowns,
bruising,
better than 8 yards per carry.
Yeah,
numerous accolades and All-American awards as he held A&T to not his first, not the second, but the third Celebration Bowl win. So he started his career at Coastal Carolina before some unfortunate incidents happened, transferred to A&T, and has not looked back. So welcome back, Jermaine Martin. And that should be interesting, or make the the MEAC spring very interesting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's a perfect segue to Chris Williams, co-founder of the HBCU Pigskin Showdown. So I'm sure he's interested in seeing who's making these moves and coming back. I have to put this out there. I was looking on Facebook as I chat around there and chiming, and one of the North Carolina Aggie fans said, "Man, that was a good move, and too bad for the SWAC they won't get to see him again in terms of the Celebration Bowl, as obviously the fall season will cancel." So that gave me a good little chuckle. But we have with us Chris Williams, Executive Director and co-founder of the HBCU Pigskin Showdown. For those that may not have heard about it, it is formerly known as the Pigskin All-Star Invitational, which I'm sure you know about, and was created by the co-founders because they wanted to serve and assist players from historically Black colleges and universities in being evaluated by the pros. Our group feels that it has recognized the need of a platform for HBCU prospects. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Fellas, how y'all doing, man?
Very good. How you doing, man?
Yeah, we appreciate y'all having us on. We're glad.
Oh yeah, it's our pleasure.
Yeah, is my partner Coach Grove in there? I don't see my buddy Coach Grove. Is he in there?
No, he hadn't chimed in yet, but we'll catch him in as soon as he come in here.
Okay.
So we'll start it off and give you a little shine. Oh, looks like somebody just popped in. I think it must
we
be
need.
Coach.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. Turn on your mic so we can get you in there.
We got him now.
Yep, we got him.
Brian, you in?
I am, sir.
All right, good to have you. Good to have you, Chris. We got your partner. You good to go?
Yeah, man. We try to do everything together. You know how it is.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Much respect there. So let's start out with you, Chris, and just give us a little background of yourself, and then we'll get a little more into the particulars in terms of how this all started, and then even more so where we're going from here. So we'll start with you, Chris, and then we'll give Brian a chance to talk about where he's from, and then I'd love to hear from Brian on the second how y'all got connected. So start us off.
All right. Well, my background is, I played college football. I did not play at an HBCU. Played at Louisiana Monroe, but I grew up in an HBCU family. My mom and dad both were Alabama State graduates, but my background here for the last 20 years has been, in arena football coaching as a head coach. And we've been all over the place. We've been in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Odessa, Texas. We currently still live in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is where our last head coaching job was in the Arena Football League. So we've been around the block in arena ball and even did a little bit of scouting in the Canadian Football League up in Montreal. And so we've been around the circuit when it comes to this, this second level of pro football. And, Coach Grove and I, as we were out of the business and we were trying to come up with, a business of our own, and we wanted to do that business inside of what we know. We wanted to do something and give back to kids and what we know, which is the sport of football, and try to spread some of what we've been able to do to help people. And the level we've been at has always been about helping kids. So when kids come play arena ball, they all are trying to get to the NFL, right? Yeah. And so we've developed a good relationship with scouts, and we felt like, hey, where can we lend ourselves as we try to branch away from the coaching business? And we said, we're looking at this HBCU deal, and really felt like the numbers are not right as far as people getting scouted, as far as people getting looked at, as far as true attention goes to HBCU kids. And so we said, hey, we wanted to start something that would really help the kids, and wanted to kind of couple that with the city of Selma and turn that whole thing into a pretty good mix. So we've got a football background of helping kids and wanted to kind of further that on HBCU.
That's tremendous. Brian, jump in there and tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would. And then at the end, do the tie-in and tell us how you all got connected.
All right. I'll try not to get that first one last mixed in the stir, the tie-in. But originally from Mobile, Alabama, Coach Williams gave me an opportunity around 2004, 2005. I started doing some scouting work from the house from him, and I was in law enforcement at the time. And probably about 2006, 2007, he needed somebody to come in out in West Texas. And I've been, all my coaching time, scouting time has all been under him and in the arena game. So like Coach was saying, once we finished our last rotation up in Green Bay, we're just trying to figure out how we can continue to help kids on the football scene, and try to find where that gap in performance was. And it ended up being, HBCU, the issues we have. One being you have segregation on one end, you got integration on the other end. So when they were full of athletes, it was, the segregation thing, you know what I mean? So they had to have eyes, but everybody was in one spot at a HBCU. So when you get integration, people start to leave. So did they leave and the eyes leave, that type of thing. So we want to create a platform like Coach said, and like already, so these kids have a legitimate place to go, and we can respect, the building that the HBCU did for these kids, and then put the best kids on the stage in an all-star format. in front of NFL decision makers.
No doubt about it. Another great point that you're making there in terms of tying this out. Also see that here that you are a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. So I want to say thank you for your service.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. And also a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. So I want to make sure for all our Omega friends that are out there watching this, we give you some love, appropriately speaking there. Awesome connection when you talk about there. I'm going to let Charles jump in here and ask a follow-up question, and then we'll kind of take it around. And then I'll come back and ask some follow-up questions as we move through and get some more information about moving this forward in terms of your program.
I wanted to ask, and guys, welcome to the program again. I wanted to ask a little bit about, you mentioned the gap in terms of pro evaluators looking at talent. And I wanted to ask the question in terms of why do you think that gap even exists? Because I think sometimes you hear, a 4.3 at Jackson State is still a 4.3 at Louisiana Monroe, or things of that nature. So is there a way you can kind of explain, why the gap exists, why NFL talent evaluators somehow look over the HBCU talent?
You know what? It's a shameful thought when you really think about it. And it's, you hate to say it, in a public forum as to what's really going on. But what's really happening is the scouts are just making decisions to not go to some of the smaller schools. So if you're on the road and you're on I-20, and you're rolling down I-20 towards Dallas, it's easier to stop at Louisiana Monroe and take a look at La Tech. But it's not so easy to turn off that road and go down to Grambling, right? I mean? And the scouts are making, unfortunately, when these scouts are putting these plans of travel together, they're not necessarily taking that turn and going down the road to Grambling anymore. So if you look at it from state to state, and a lot of times when I'm talking to scouts, I'll say, they'll say, hey, I'm going to Alabama's pro day, and I'll say, hey, you're going to see that kid down at Alabama A&M, and he's not on the schedule. You know what I mean? So for whatever reason that's happening, they just are not, going in and going on campus the way that we think they should, and especially based on what the history is. You're talking, during a time where, we've done our research on this, and there was a time from, 1963 through about 1994 that you had about 500 kids drafted out of HBCU. And, for some reason that's taken a turn out. Now, some of that has been some of the top prospects are not going to HBCU. So there is a little bit of that. So don't get that mistaken. There is a little bit of that. But at the same time, it's just not been a priority, to put some of these schools on the map. You're not, people aren't going to visit, Norfolk State. They're not going to all these schools, in consistency like they're going to some of the other places. So there's a gap. And then you even look at the numbers of the draft the last couple of years. And you're talking last year, there was one kid from HBCU drafted, kid out of Tennessee State that's actually, from Selma, Latavius Simmons, that went to the Bears in the 7th round. But you're talking one kid. You from the way we look at it as football guys, it's tough for us to believe and understand, and even, it's tough to wrap our heads around that there's one kid in HBCU that gets an opportunity to get drafted. Although, it just doesn't fit for what we think the talent is at the HBCU.
Sure thing.
That's great to hear that perspective. We see it, read about it, and chat about it, but now we're talking about people that are in the game, obviously, from what you're doing, and then specifically from a scouting perspective. So you get to see talent, and you also get to talk, which I think is an important perspective that you put on the table. So I appreciate you sharing. Mike, go ahead and follow up a question, if you would, for Brian.
Yeah, fellows, again, I echo the Brian. Thanks for coming on the show, and glad to have you. I'd like to build off that question, if you will. You see the disparities. One person drafted in the first 7 rounds, and some of, the disparities that you see. What is your approach and guidance now to market, promote African-American players from HBCUs? Not everyone can go to the NFL. Is there a path from there to the Canadian Football League? Is that kind of the approach you're doing? And how does the Pigskin, Showdown, how does that factor into that as well?
All right, if that's me, I'd say the bridge, and the reason why we picked Selma, so I can use this term bridge. You have to create a bridge and a platform that's consistent. So that's what we want to do. So you're absolutely correct. It won't be just the the NFL. The CFL will also be reached out to, and any other legitimate professional entity. You have XFL that may be coming back in. There's just not enough places for kids to play, right? We all know that. So a lot of kids end up in Europe and all these other leagues. So if you can have a consistent place, almost like Negro League baseball, right? You can say we're going to have a Black Senior Bowl in Selma and have it in a place that people have the background to be doing this, myself and coach, and we can get with these institutions and the coaches and get the access to the kids, the film and the information through shows like yourself. We thank you for bringing us on, but it helps us build credibility so we can walk in like the press and go talk to an AD and say, hey, I need this film. I need this information on this kid, so we can select the best kid. It helps us to do our process once we get all that and start watching the film, if that answered your question.
No, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. I have a question I want to jump in here and follow up. I'm going to go back to you, Chris, with this one. And this is coming from one of our viewers out there that asked a question in regards to what you stated a little earlier. You talked about helping the kids. Mm-hmm. So Rusty wanted to follow up and ask about, to engage you, how does this make you feel about being able to help these young men out there?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, I would say it. You know, that's the passion has always been like that, and for us as coaches, I mean, I've had a couple guys that have gone from the Arena League and actually, played in some NFL games, and that's like seeing your son play at the NFL level. So you can only imagine how that fills your heart when you see that. And we I'm telling you, every day that we spend with those kids, it's all about development and all about trying to get them to that final goal of getting where they want to be. So, for us, it's a real deal when it comes to us. Yes, it's a business entity for us, but at the same time, that coach's feeling of being able to help a kid reach a goal is a pretty big deal for us. So it makes us feel good.
No doubt about it. If you don't mind, hold on about 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and finish out the interview and allow us to talk a little bit more about how the coaches out there and players, if they need to, how they can get the appropriate information to you, and just how folks from our show can follow you all, get more information about what you're doing, and just continue to connect and follow up. But this is Dr. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are interviewing HBCU Pigskin CEO, in terms of executive director and co-founder, Chris Williams, and Bryant Grove, giving us a background. And Bryant Grove is the director of operations, obviously, as we said, and the co-founder. We'll be right back with you.
True Black Essentials is a retail opportunity to bring Black businesses under one roof, where every product on every shelf in every aisle will be Black owned and Black produced by people all over the world. Statistics show that the $1.3 trillion of spending power that we have as Black people can easily be turned into each Black person having $2 million if we were to shop Black for 2 years. So True Black Essentials will launch an e-commerce store on November 1st, 2020, but we will open up brick and mortar stores in Atlanta, New Orleans, Charlotte, Houston, and Jacksonville, with the very first store opening in Atlanta, June 19, 2021.
It's never too early to.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're interviewing the co-founders of the HBCU Pigskin Showdown. Chris Williams, executive director, and Brian Grove, the director of operations. They're both co-founders. I'm going to go back to you, Brian, to ask you this follow-up question, another one from our viewership, and then we'll come to you, Chris, to kind of follow up and let us know how folks can get more information and stay engaged in terms of what you're doing. But for you, Brian, wanted to know in terms of just going in to the questioning in terms of how do you believe that you can work with the scouting people out there, NFL franchises, as you said, Canadian football leagues, in terms of once you get this game engaged and you get this information, what is the process of communicating in such a way that you can get them the appropriate information that helps move things along for these kids to get a shot at the next level?
With the NFL specifically, they have a process that we have to apply for. They don't necessarily endorse anybody that's having an event, but they give permission for the scouts and the GMs to attend. So once you establish yourself as a legitimate source, and basically that legitimate source 9 times out of 10 is probably going to be outside of the pay for play space. But once you get that status, you submit an application to the NFL, they review it, and then they will then pass that information and give permission to the GMs. All right. And once they do that, you have access and they have access. So the communication starts at that point. Once they give you the green light for the GMs to show up and the scouts to show up, then the interaction starts. And that's the same. That would be simultaneously with developing the same relationship with the HBCUs, the administration and the athletic departments. Similar process. So once people understand that you're a legitimate entity and you're doing business on the up and up, and you get the green light from that process, then all the data that they would need or we would need, we can request it through their contact people.
Man, that's great insight. With that, Chris, as we come to a close, want to make sure that you can get any information you needed out there, but more specifically, wanted to make sure for all of our followers to be able to talk about how can they get more information from you to follow up, and then those students that need to get information to you as well, either to volunteer to help support you or be engaged in this process. Could you share that with me?
Yeah, I mean, everybody can find us on Facebook at HBCU Pigskin Showdown, and you can look us up and like the page and keep up with daily information that we try to put out. And also the website's there, HBCUPigskinShowdown.com is there, and all our email addresses and contact information is there. So you'll be able to follow through the website as well as connect directly with Coach Grove and I through that and our contact. So those two places right now is where we are primarily. Now we haven't gotten into the Twitter space and other spaces just yet, but we will. But those two major places are where we're at. And the only other thing that I like to point out is that, what we're doing here, and there have been some other HBCU games that have been played here recently that we have nothing but respect for. But at the same time, that Coach Grove mentioned that there's a pay-for-play space that a lot of those games charge these players to come participate. And the way we've structured this thing is, we're running this thing through sponsorships and through other entities with the city. The city of Selma has been wonderful to us. And so what we're doing is it'll be a true invite, so that when that kid gets that call from us, it is a true invite. He's not going to have to figure out how he's going to come up with the money. It's just, hey, am I going to take this invite and go play in this game? So we feel like that's an important piece. And for us as coaches, we wanted to make sure that we weren't in that pay-for-play space, because we really want this to be something that a kid can grab onto. We don't want it to be just for kids that can afford it. We want it to be, the best kids that we can actually put on the field.
All right. Man, I'm really glad that you added that and shared that. Last thing, anything else you want to share that we didn't quite get a chance to get to that you think is important?
For me, it's just, we just want the people of HBCU to know that we're here, and we're looking to get involved with the athletic departments, and just that people know that we're around and why we're asking for information and what we're doing it for, and the fact that we may be asking for recommendations about kids and asking for film and that sort of thing. That's the way we feel like the HBC community can support us. And once they see that first game played, I think, and especially with that combination with Selma, I think people will start to gravitate to it. But just out of the gate, just really want people to understand what this is about and where we're trying to go with this, and hopefully we can get some open arms to the information as we're trying to move through it.
Certainly. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Live, interviewing Chris Williams and Brian Grove of HBCU Pigskin Showdown, classic coming up about giving these all-star players the opportunity. As you said, this is a true invitational event, which is, I think, an important marker that you laid out. Any more information as it comes to it, please stay with us, and we'll make sure that we'll bring you back on to share it with our viewerships and make the context as necessary. We want to really thank you for your time. Know your schedule is busy with all the things that you're working on. I want to say stay safe, COVID-19. Happy New Year, and thank you again for joining us on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Yes, sir.
See y'all soon.
Oh, no doubt about it. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As we get back into it and show it up there, just want to say, great interview in terms of the opportunity. I like that they're taking that next step in regards to HBCU Pigskin Showdown. I think that's important. Charles, I wanted to go back to you and talk a little bit in regards to the basketball games this past weekend. You know, anything really come to mind when you talk about some of the basketball matchup that you've seen going around, whether that's out of the MEAC, SWAC, men's or women's side? Just want to get your insight of what you've been seeing before I break down and give you some of this whole life out.
Sure. I mean, I thought it was pretty impressive, to be very honest with you, that Jackson State did the Texas two-step and went 2-0, Jackson State women's basketball, in terms of getting wins at Prairie View and Texas Southern. We always know both of those games are going to be very difficult games, and they were pretty dominant in terms of what they were able to do this past weekend at Prairie View and Texas Southern. Another game that kind of stood out for me was Southern taking on UAPB and really blowing them out. I mean, UAPB to me has been one of the kind of surprise teams, especially with Sean Doss being the prolific scorer that he is. But I tell you what, Southern just comes out and does what they do basketball wise. You always see 4 or 5 players in double figures somewhere, and it's good team ball, and they just get after you defensively. So, you know, both of those were impressive. And you guys started off the show. Prairie View men's basketball, 29 home wins in a row, one of the best in the country. I'm curious when we get to the polls, if I don't see Prairie View at number 1, I'm hollering East Coast bias early.
You said it, I didn't. You said it, I didn't.
Man, he put me on front sheet before I can get out.
Yeah.
I hope I don't let him down. We'll see. Before I come to you, Mike, just give you a question in terms of basketball. D1 basketball team stands provides the latest NET ranking. For those that don't know, the NET ranking, which stands for NCAA Evaluation Tool, replaced the RPI after the 2017-18 season, and is used as primary sorting tool for selection and seeding in the NCAA tournament. So this is not just the RPI ranking, and obviously this could be all over the place, but you got to gauge it somewhere in terms of how they're going to rank. Then you get a little more information as the teams play more games. But right now you have 4 teams that have less than a 200 ranking. I'm going to go from the least number there to the greatest. And what I mean that in terms of the highest seeding in descending order. So I'm starting with number 169. These are all the ones under 200. They go all the way up to 347, which is Mississippi Valley. Now, I'm only going to do the ones at 200 to start out and see what your thoughts are. And then I'll give you some other places and let you guess, Mike, how far behind these 4 are some teams that you may consider should be above that. 169 is Norfolk State. At 160 is North Carolina Central. They hadn't played in a while. Number 2 in terms of highest ranking teams in this ranking with HBCUs at the Division I level, and this is men's, is Alabama A&M at 156. They took a break off and just came back. They're up there. And the number 1 highest ranked HBCU Division I team right now is Morgan State at 120. What are your thoughts, Mike, in terms of where those teams are seating? Do you agree with that? And not necessarily that you're not agreeing with the evaluation. It's just an evaluation team. But what are your thoughts in terms of what you think I'm going to bring out with the top-ranked teams and how it will compare with it?
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with them. I would agree with the Morgan State being the highest ranked. They're playing well. I don't know if I agree with the Alabama A&M Central being ranked ahead of Southern and Prairie View. Both teams are playing really well. Southern just blew out Valley by 40, 50 points. You may say, well, Valley? We talking Valley?
Right, you said 100 spot. Anytime you put a 100 spot, I don't care who it is.
I know you put 100 spot.
Especially this is a team at Southern that you've seen that's always solid on the defensive side that you point out, but we don't necessarily think about them on the offensive side. So for them, I think that's an impressive point. So I take what you're saying. Point on, Mike. I think you're on to something there.
So those are 2 or 3 things that stand out for me, just from an analytical standpoint.
No problem. Right behind there. So you're not too far. Right outside it, the next 3 are 218 Southern, 240 Prairie View, and 243 FAMU. So they're right there in the mix. Interesting. But let me get to the poll. I'm going to do Chivalry's Not Dead. We're going to do the women first and kind of jump in there and do it that way and get some information here and give you my top 5. So I really want to see your thoughts as we're getting a little more into basketball. AD says, I'm in on the analytics. Yeah, AD. Be sure to find out. That's what we're going to talk about. AD says he has PV number 1, is not number 1 in the BCSN ranking, so y'all go check that out. He's already declared that that's not an issue. We always got to give some love to none other than Jimmy and see where Jimmy has. Now, he has Norfolk State as his number 1 team. He does not have Prairie View in his top 5. Nor does he have
Jimmy. Oh my God. Say Jimmy. Come on, man. Come on, man.
But I'm going to give y'all a chance to kind of, mix it up as we do in the lab a little bit on the menu. But here, Chivalry's Not Dead. So we're going to go to the women. All right. So we didn't have any teams falling out to the top 5. But we did have some mix in terms of some of the teams underneath it. You have Alabama A&M receiving votes. They're at 4-2, 2-1 in conference play, right? Alcorn State Braves are sitting at 4-5, 4-1. It's been rolling. Didn't think you would see Alcorn State Brave team from the ladies' side jump up this fast. Remember, that's a new coach down there, and she's getting it done, getting some wins under her belt. We'll see what that looks like, particularly when they play the rivalry. That'll be fascinating to see how that goes in some of the points. Grambling State Tigers sit at 4-4 and 3-1. Got a big last-second win against Prairie View. Prairie View actually scored. Thought they had won the game, as they thought they had won at the buzzer, and it was waved off. Too sad, no good. Unfortunately for the Panthers down there, women's side, Grambling was able to get it done. Or if you're a Grambling fan, you'll be like, that's what we do. So let's get to the top 5 programs on the women's side. The number 5, standing number 5, is North Carolina A&T State Aggies, 5-1, 4-0. And number 4 is Jackson State Tigers, 6-5, 5-1. They remain in the 4th spot. And number 3, you have Alabama State Hornets, 3-0. And they got a big win over their Alabama A&M, the women's side, in a lot of ways. That was interesting in terms of that. They got 1 first-place vote now. They sit with 83 points, remain at number 3, but they gained the first-place vote. And number 2, you have Morgan State Bears sitting at 6-2, 3-1, 3 first-place votes. They lost the first-place vote, but they stay at number 2 with 92 points. And the number 1 team on the women's side is Howard Bison, 7-2, 3-1, 5 first-place votes, 95 points. Rename number 1. I'm going to go back to Mike with the women, and let me know your thoughts on the top 5. Nobody fell out. You saw a little changing in terms of some first-place votes. The number of points has changed a little bit. Any concern about the top 5 teams on the women's side in your view, Mike? And do you believe, if not, do you believe some of those receiving votes, Alabama A&M, Alcorn State, and Grambling State, all SWAC members, do you see them ascending to get in the top or moving even further down in terms of receiving votes? What are your thoughts on the top 5? Week 3 is Howard Bison remains in the top spot.
I don't know if Howard, I can see why you may do it number 1. Morgan State's 3-1, 4-1. I think Alabama State and Jackson State are on their way up. If they're not up this week, they'll be up next week. They're both playing some terrific ball, and they're starting to hit their stride. So the other thing is, why is A&T? They're 4-0. At home, undefeated, 2-1 on the road, 6-1 last 10 games. Why are they at number 5? So that's
fair.
That I mean, that's
I think that's a great point, Mike.
That's fair.
Say,
yeah.
It's troubling because I'm gonna ask you this: who do you push down? I think that's fair. I love when we get in this discussion because I think that's where it goes. And so I want to hear, who do you push down? Where do you how far do you push them up? I think that's unique this year because the PIAC is in divisions, so they hadn't played Morgan State and Howard, and they won't play them into the tournament.
That's what it is.
To your point, I'm glad that you made that challenge. How far would you push A&T up, and who would you slide down?
I would push Morgan up. They have their two last wins against Delaware State. Delaware State is kind of at the bottom of the division. They have losses to Howard, which is number one. And I think if you look at the winning record, you look at percentage, also look at statistics, scoring wise per game.
I like that.
You can't relatively compare it, but if you look at it, Alabama State, Jackson State are scoring more per game than Morgan State is. So, so I think
now y'all getting in a little bit of the sports analytics. We can see out there as we get in there. I like this. Let's go to Charles. And Charles, what do you see in terms of the top five? Any concern that you have with this top five?
I don't have any concern with the top five. I think, to your point, North Carolina A&T, it's very interesting where they are at 5 because it's hard for me to push them up in seeing Jackson State up close now in terms of watching what they were able to do over this past weekend. But Alabama State has a very impressive win against Jackson State. One of the things that you notice with regards to Jackson State, they out-rebound everybody. When Alabama State beat them, rebounds were a push, 53 and 53. I thought that was very important going forward. Alabama State has a three-headed scoring tandem in Ayana Emmanuel, Shemaya Ward, and Jayla Crawford. They all get it done week in, week out, and they have a pretty impressive victory over UAPB. I thought UAPB was going to be one of my surprise teams in the SWAC this past season with Don Brown, but they've started out very, very sluggish in SWAC play. Joyce Kennerson, I have not seen her in the stat sheet. She was a prize transfer going from Texas Southern to UAPB, but they have not gotten off to a good start. And Howard and Morgan State, they've just been consistent. They've been consistently getting it done over there in the MEAC. So I can't move either. This top 5 looks pretty accurate to me, I'll be very honest.
Yeah. The one thing also I would say is you look at the top 4 scorers in the SWAC, it goes Alabama State, Jackson State, Alabama State, Jackson State. It's Ayana Emmanuel, it's Williams, it's Jayla Crawford, it's who else? Deja Rogan, and are pretty much the top 4 or 5 scorers. When you look at the SWAC and you look at who you have, you see one Howard Bison there, but I don't see too many Morgan State folks there.
Team ball.
Yes.
Dr. Cavil, I'm gonna point this out with the teams just receiving votes. Grambling is very dangerous in terms of Candace Parmore. She's averaging 11 points a game. Alexis Hope, Justice Coleman, they have 3 scorers at Grambling. They did the Texas two-step 2-0 this past weekend as well. And we mentioned one of the players of the week, Curtis Clark, with Alcorn. Alcorn has gotten off to a tremendous start in SWAC play. So those teams, you better watch out as we go a little further into the season. They could play, spoiler, if you will.
No doubt about it. I love great breakdown from the professors here, giving you some of that sports analytics in a way. Let me go in here and give you some comments. Roosevelt said Jimmy is out the family. I guess that's my comment saying that they were. Willie Alex Hines said no. About PV is not number 1, as AD said in the BCS ranking. Willie Alex Hines said no, but they should be ranked. He doesn't believe that. He also chimed in there. He likes the fact that Howard's women's team is pretty good. They beat LaSalle earlier in the year. I did take that in consideration to my ranking. Rusty likes the fact that what you're commenting, both of you on Jackson State. She has the basketball and the muscles. She said strong. She likes that. So I thought that was interesting in bringing that up. So before we got in there, we did have a class from Michael D. Jones that asked a question that I want to chime in before we get into the men's side and get you all to break that out before we close up. He asked the question about the Southlands breakup. As we talked about last week, 5 of the schools went over there and created the WAC. Some of them are looking to look at maybe get back in the FBS. Got a 10-year picture frame that they're looking at to try to do that, which means the Southland, because Central Arkansas also talked about moving to the Atlantic Sun. The Atlantic Sun is talking about moving to 6 teams. They're going to take the 2 teams that they have out of the Big South, which is an agreement that they would return if 6 teams were able to get in the Atlantic Sun. That's North Alabama as well as Kennesaw State. They'll be moving to the Atlantic Sun, which means that the Big South shrinks back down 6-7 teams, which is an interesting thing when you talk about North Carolina A&T in Hampton. How does that make them feel in regards to that? There's some benefits about being small, as we talked about with the MEAC. In terms of the breakdown of the money, you get more of the money for the basketball money. You reduce your travel footprint, but you have to look for many more games. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. It's also going to affect Tennessee State in terms of what's going on in OVC. And that's why I bring these HBCUs as we look at these, what I call the HWCUs, historically white colleges, in these other conferences where you have Tennessee State and OVC. 2 of the schools that are coming out that's going to go to the Atlantic Sun are talking about coming out of the OVC. There are some reports that the 16 that will come in Atlanta is also going to come out of the OVC. So that means the OVC will lose 3 teams, which means they're down to 6, which really makes it fascinating when you think about the fact that the Tennessee State had a chance. Backdoor Channel's talking about coming in this fact and did not take advantage of it. Will they be looking differently about that if these moves come out of the OVC affecting them in terms of looking forward? I take all that to really answer Mike P. Jones' question when he talks about the fact of what does it mean for the SWAC. You heard Charles talking about his aggressiveness with ESPN and some other programs out there for that matter about getting more games on the television and more of them in prime time, regardless of what channel you're looking at. And I think the fact that you become the super player, literally in terms of numbers, 12 teams, while everybody else is going to be around 6 or 7, you literally become the big dog. We talked about being a super conference, but now at the FCS level, it shows out even more because the other conferences just plain smaller. So as we talk about the benefits of more money from the basketball and spreading out less teams, you do have the complication about playing games. What does that look like? But your ability to market yourself changes in a lot of ways when we talk about the analytics from a conference perspective. I think this puts a lot more power within the SWAC that we already thought they have, but I think this buttresses based on what they're doing in a lot of ways, getting in front of this conference churning. I think this will go a long way, but it is something to keep your eyes on. I will also say out there, as 1876 Sports and Culture pointed out in a lot of ways, that this information that came out with Southland looking at Texas Southern and Prairie View, certainly it's obvious they got to look at everybody, their choices, and why not Texas schools. But I know in a lot of ways, like they pointed out, that that's one of those things that if you know the back door of the business, that's where you have the conference, the consulting company that's for the Big South. They purposely go out and reach behind the scenes and try to talk to ADs or presidents. Usually they go straight to the AD and say, hey, do you have some interest about looking at it? And that way both parties have the ability to plausible deniability and talk. And I know for a fact, both of these schools, one reported because the AD answered a question from Michael Prince from his show, interviewed the AD at Prairie View. And he specifically talked about the fact that he had no interest in doing it. Obviously, say, but also understand that I've seen the fact that Texas Southern doesn't have an interest. And at this point, it would be just difficult to see Texas Southern even make the move because they're going through a president change. And you usually do not make dynamic changes when you're about to go to official change in terms of that. So those are some things just to give you some background of why I have been given the information that's going to happen. So I did want to share that.
Doc, let me quickly go back to Tennessee State in terms of that churning going on in the OVC. If I'm a Tennessee State fan, where does that leave me in terms of, I've been playing, I see all this stuff going on in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I got teams leaving the conference that I'm in. does that in some manner, shrink the profile of Tennessee State even more?
I think it does. I think one of the things that people don't understand that we tend to look at this is almost how we look at attendance in television.
Yep.
We still have that old school mentality where we look so much at attendance. And attendance is good. Don't get me wrong. You can leverage attendance too. But the game has moved. It's moved to television. And if we're not careful, it's even moved from that. It's moved from television to streaming. Attendance rates, even in the SEC with young folks, are going down. They're doing things to try to increase the footprint of the student. And it's like 5 years old for the SEC as they look to modernize their stadium, to put more the social media platforms so they can engage students that come, making sure they have more Wi-Fi accessibility in terms of your stadium or in your basketball arenas, baseball, diamond complexes, softball for that matter. These are all things that you need to know that the generations of folks are moving. And if you don't keep up with it, you will have a major problem. There's no question. I'm working directly with Charles and consulting wise on this part, and I know he understands that. But to get back to your question with Tennessee State, I think they have a major problem. They become a regional institution.
Yep.
The students that they service are mainly African American. Where do African Americans live? They live in urban enclaves. And so to not have your ability to get to those enclaves so they can see you, out of sight is out of mind. Wow. You're going to small cities, and it's not to to talk about negatively in terms of these small cities, just to put up the point. That's not where you're going to get most of your students. Most of your students in Tennessee are going to come from Nashville or Memphis.
Yep.
But that's a small population. To take it up a notch, just so you understand it, one of the major problems with Tennessee is the population they get to recruit athletes, even at the big, bad, supposedly University of Tennessee in Knoxville, is now you got all these other places, Florida and Alabama, keeping their kids, and then they're able to get into Georgia and get those kids out of Atlanta. They're able to take these major metropolitan cities, Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, and get the best players. They're not staying at Tennessee, and they got to recruit out. It's the same problem with Nebraska. They don't have the ability. Nebraska, when they were winning, they used to live in California, LA, and Dallas, Texas.
Yep.
Right. Now, the Texas schools are keeping that talent. Texas A&M is getting some of them exited out of there, but guess where they're going? They're going to SEC schools. Or going to the Big Ten, the major players. So you have to get out of the regionality or you just can't survive. So the beautiful thing that SWAC was able to do when they expanded the footprint, and they did it in such a way that they win the division, which still allows you to do some cost conservativeness in terms of reducing travel and how they're going to travel and making sure folks don't take different amounts of trips, but expanding that footprint so you can get into different marketplace where your student population is extremely important, which is one of the reasons that I've always pushed for them seriously looking at Clark Atlanta University. Yes, private institutions, not very good athletically for a while, but the marketplace, if they get the co-brand with the SWAC, you'll see them have the ability to really market, and it's even better for the SWAC. So the problem you have with Tennessee State, even if they take a look at SWAC now, they got to partner with somebody. Who are they going to partner in their region? South Carolina State is too far away, so you got to go to Division II. So they have a major problem because I don't even know if the door is still open for the SWAC. And so as we pushing over time a little bit, hope Ralph Cooper, Hall of Famer over there, understands that we get in there. The last thing we'll do is before we close up and let everybody go, let's spend a couple of minutes, extend the show just a little bit and get into the men's side. And hopefully folks out there enjoy that conversation and breakdown and understand the expansion of the SWAC and really understand what does it mean in terms of you see the churning going on with these other conferences outside of the SWAC. But with that, as we get in a little bit of the analytics in terms of the poll ranking for the men, those teams, we did have one change here. Dropping me out of the poll this week number 3 is Morgan State Bears, 6-4, 2-2. They fall out. Tough loss there. Receiving votes is Coppin State Eagles, 4-9, 3-1. FAMU sits at 2-6, 1-0. Haven't been able to play their second conference game as that second one against South Carolina State was canceled. Remember, the MEAC is interesting because they're playing 2 games in a row. They basically play Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes they may play a Sunday, Monday, Friday, Saturday, if you would. versus have you see the SWAC sticking to their traditional schedule that Saturday, Monday going on. And in the MEAC, they also play the same team back to back. Morgan State, as they fell out this week, they still receiving votes. They sit at 6-4 and 2-2. Hampton Pirates, 7-8, 6-4, have gotten really into that Big South Conference. They did get 2 big wins this weekend, but it was against the bottom of the conference, so they're not able to rise up in the poll ranking thus far. It'll be interesting to see as they start to conclude their season and many games they're playing, can they stay at this rate that they're doing, which will maybe justify them getting in the poll. Top 5 teams is number 5. Alabama A&M Bulldogs sit at 2-0, hadn't been able to play. COVID-19 has gotten them counseled. They stay in the top 5, but they do fall a spot. They fall from number 4, 47 points. At number 4, jumping into the poll this week, Southern Jaguars, sitting at 3-4, 3-0. You talked about them and what they did a couple of games, so it probably doesn't surprise that they jumped in, but we'll see if you accept where they're ranking there. At number 3, you have Prairie View. I do not have them number 1. They do move up 2 spots from number 5, sit at 3-4, 2-0. 1 first place vote sitting at 77 points. At number 2, you have North Carolina A&T State Aggies sitting at 5-9, 2-0. 3 first place votes, they 92 points. They remain at number 2, but the number 1 team still is Norfolk State Spartans sitting at 8-4, 4-1. Outside of Hampton Pirates, they've been able to get the most games in conference play, with 5 of them sitting at 4-1. 5 first place votes, 99 points. Remaining at number 1, Norfolk State Spartans earned the number 1 ranking in week number 3. I started out with Charles last time, right? In terms of the poll ranking.
Right.
Let me go to you, Mike, first, in terms of what you think in terms of the men's side. What are your thoughts in terms of the top 5 teams? No, I started with you, Mike. Let me go to Charles. Charles, what are your top 5? What do you think of the poll rank?
Southern jumping in, they're very, very deserving of getting in the top 5. Alabama A&M, and even though they're a very good team, 3-0 thus far on the season, it's just the body of work, the postponements. It just doesn't allow for you to really know if they are, truly one of those top teams in the country, even with some impressive in-state wins. Prairie View, I can't say enough about 29 game home win streak. They would be in front of North Carolina A&T for me. Now, I give Norfolk State all the credit in the world for being having a winning record at this point in the season, because most times we see with HBCUs when they're go through their November, December schedule, the win-loss record is upside down. But to be at this point 8-4 and 4-1 thus far in conference play, I take my hats off to them. But for me, Prairie View is the best HBCU basketball team in the country right now.
I like it.
Cam Mack is a star, and everybody's gonna see it real soon. He's a stat stuffer.
Yeah, he is nice. It's going to be interesting as this season plays out, as many games that they're able to get in, because you're going to get a chance to see. These teams will eventually play each other, we imagine, so you'll get a chance to come out. But I think you make a valid point. Prairie View A&M, as they continue to get it done. Well coached, obviously, in terms of Coach Smith. I gave him a shout out. Make sure everybody knew a little bit there, just so you know what's going on home team. So you can't say I have the purple glasses on. I just call it like I see it. Just to give you something to jump back and forth before you get in this, Mike, to see what you think. Jimmy has Alabama A&M at 5, Morgan State at 4, 3 Coppin State, 2 Hampton, and number 1 Norfolk. So he does agree with the number 1. He agrees with me with number 5. But that's about it in terms of that. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with Charles that Prairie View should be number 1? Or do you have some other thoughts in any other team you have concerns about in terms of week number 3, the top 5 poll ranking?
I agree with both. Here's why. I think Norfolk State should hold the number 1 spot. They have 4 straight wins, 1 in overtime over Delaware State. I don't think North Carolina State should be number 2, because outside of their latest win, which is South Carolina State, they're owed $1 million right now. They're dead last. And other than that, they have pretty much 3 or 4 straight losses. I don't see where they come up with number 2. And by that ranking, I think Prairie View should move up above North Carolina. And for that matter, Southern should move up just by the nature. It's unfortunate that Prairie View and Southern couldn't play each other because of postponement. It would have been nice.
I want to see that. Yeah.
I really wanted to see that, but I don't trust that North Carolina A&T team and that standing with them as number 2. Other than that, yeah, keep Alabama A&M. It's unfortunate that they hadn't been able to get past this COVID bug, as Charles mentioned, but move Prairie View, Southern up, move A&T down.
Ooh, that's tough.
Swag bias.
We're full. Hashtag swag. Dean Brown Burton said leave it at 12. 12 is enough. So I think Tennessee State in trouble if you leave it up to the fans, at least from our small sample size of group. But anyway, fascinating to see. That'll do it for us in terms of the rankings. Thanks for your sports analytics, the professors, Charles Bishop and Mike Washington, giving great information as we do it here. That's what for us. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. Streaming obviously on YouTube. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. I hope you enjoyed our interview with the HBCU Pigskin Showdown. In terms of those guests there, again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday right here at 6 o'clock. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattacavil. Again, that's DrKenyattacavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can catch us on Twitter at Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1. Again, follow us on Instagram. Check us all out. Facebook, Twitter, as we do it all. YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to us on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Course.
Mike.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook.